There's a lesson.
It's like school when the
I
teacher
know.
walks in and all.
Presenting.
Alrighty, let's start with the finance committee report, and I'm gonna keep my sunglasses on just for the record. If anybody cares, that's too bad. Call to order, and we'll take a roll call.
Director Brown,
Present.
Director Jeffries.
Present.
Thank you.
And is there anybody that's indicated online that they have any comments, questions, or issues?
Nope, we don't have anyone with us via Zoom, and I did not receive any emailed comments or questions.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Let's go ahead and start with our review of the financial statements, and I will start the report. Report number 1, balance sheet comparison of May to April. Liabilities and equity for May is $12,217,966,000. Versus April, $12,445,830 for a decrease of $227,000. Make sure I'm looking at the right numbers here yet. Report number 2. Income statement, total net income for the month of May is a negative $378,706, due in part to the community health contract payment disbursement.
Right, which as a side note is the last disbursement for the 22-23 fiscal year.
Good. Report number 3, profit and loss, actual versus budget. Based upon the approved budget, the district is over budget and year-to-date net income by $123,091. That's always a good place to
That
be.
is always a good thing.
Report number 4, the approved annual budget for 22-23 fiscal year. There's been no changes in the budget. We couldn't do without a board meeting anyway. And I believe we'll be posting that on a permanent basis to our website. Report number 5, the LAIF account statement. LAIF posted $0 in quarterly interest earnings because this is not a quarter. The cost value is $3,409,247 with a fair market value of $3,363,257. So the performance rate for the month of May was 2.993. That's actually pretty good.
Mhm.
Should we be taking money out of class if we went back in there? No.
Not yet. That might be about a year from now.
Perhaps. Report number 6, the Cal Trust account. Cost basis for this account is $5,832,903. The district earned $17,411 in dividend income this month and an unrealized loss of $29,000.64, bringing the portfolio's total value to $5,666,737. As of May 2023, the 1-year yield on the medium-term fund where these funds are allocated was 2.36%. In property tax revenue, the district accrued a tax apportionment of $14,777.15 for May. The check detail report, report number 8. Anything we should be taking special note of here?
Nope. It's
All those goodly checks to our partners. Thank you for getting those closed out at the end of the fiscal year. That's really cool that we're starting this year all paid up.
Oh, yeah,
Nice.
yeah. It's always a way we want to have done. Unfortunately, there are always a few things that come straggling in, but
Right.
we've done what we could to make sure we've gotten those, and then, you know, sometimes somebody else is closing out their books and they send you their invoice. National Demographics Corporation,
Who do we use to process our payroll?
ADP.
Okay. And they give us our amounts for tax deposits and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yes. we've been quite happy since we moved to ADP and we've had no issues.
Who were you using before?
It was,
Kathy Vogel.
Kathy Bogle had a thing through her paychecks, I think it was paychecks.
No, I think it was like QuickBooks payroll, Intuit payroll or
Oh.
some
Right,
weird.
I remember Intuit.
yes, I think you're right. It was cumbersome. Kathy Bogle was our previous CEPA. She left the district around the same time I got here, because Susan came in right as I got here. And we just, would no longer have had access to it, so we would have had to make a lot of changes, and ADP made much more fiscal sense, operational sense. It's a big known entity and they're the best.
So all of our associates or employees are able to have direct deposit and all that?
Oh, yeah. All employees have direct deposit. All employees have access to their own ADP portal where they're able to identify all of their various accrued
Deduction.
times and those kinds of things. Yeah.
Good. You guys are all happy with it and everything?
I love everything.
Yeah, okay.
So Judith pretty much runs payroll through that, and then just as a point of process, I go in monthly and just kind of spot check things to make sure everything from that end also looks good, because that's a much more obscure thing that the board and auditors don't get as much clarity in. So that's one of the things that is on my task list to check. And then Susan does a payroll check that goes, you do yours as part of your monthly complaint?
The, Marnie does 2 journal entries in payroll and I review them.
Right.
Are all of our employees, are they all salary or anybody hourly?
No, most are hourly. Judith, Teresa, and myself are the only ones that are salaried exempt.
Okay.
Everybody else is hourly. We don't really have the right classification for anyone else to be salaried at this point. At some point, we may review staff responsibilities as it goes forward to see if there's any supervisory components or if their skills are technical enough that it warrants that. But at this point, we're making sure that everybody is also being treated fairly and not being over or abused, and that includes the salaried team as well, except for me. I'm happy to be 20%.
Goes with the territory.
Goes with the territory.
So we're able to make sure, where I'm going with this is,
Where you lead, I follow.
yeah, okay. I just want to make sure we have some monitoring mechanism to make sure that we are continually in compliance with the wage and hour provisions, specific as it requires employee break time, lunch breaks within it, right down to the minute as far as being done correctly. And I don't know how we manage the employees' time clock. I don't see
So-
anybody walking over punching the time clock.
No, they have paper time sheets, but Teresa is responsible for the wellness center staff to make sure that they're getting their break in before the 5 hour time.
4.5 hours
4.5, yeah.
Yes.
We always aim
to the minute.
yes, we actually try to go right after 4 hours to avoid all that 4.5, 5 hour issue. So we generally ask everybody to go right at the 4 hour mark, especially with all these shifting in schedules. We have to just remind people, to try to avoid any kind of problems going into the beyond the 4.5 makes me uncomfortable. I was telling you, I'm like, just 4.
Well, you can't because there's a penalty. involved.
Right, there's a penalty.
Right. So that is part of the timesheet process. So Teresa reviews timesheets there. Judith reviews timesheets here. All the timesheets come to me, then I review them as well. We have a pretty standard paper follow-up process with it. And then the auditors, as part of their regular, will spot check certain parts of employee files. That's not been a challenge in the last few years at all.
I just want to make sure that we all have a comfort level and I'm not suggesting anything one way or the other. That, there's no chance realistically for someone to, perhaps intentionally not take their breaks.
No.
Which puts us in a pickle in a lot of ways, and makes us look bad if that ever gets out and that sort of thing. So
Absolutely,
that's
no.
where I'm going.
There's several conversations that happen with folks, not only in their initial onboarding when they come on as new employees, which most of our team is still new. But that is part of their onboarding, and then we get pretty vigilant about it. I know both Judith and I will be like, did you take your break yet? Did you go? Did you go? But the team has a really good internal process of, hey, you've already done your lunch, okay, so I'm going. Generally, it's fairly consistently scheduled. They've got a pretty good process of that over at the wellness center as well, even though their schedule flexes a little bit more. That's built in so that because Patty comes in first, she's the first one out at lunch, then it's typically Bianca and Katya, and there's usually some overlap or staggering based on how those schedules work out. Then the other thing, just since we're on that topic, when we do have meetings that are gonna run us late, the team that is hourly, we will have them with a later start time so that we're not generally running into overtime. Occasionally we will have overtime. It's usually discussed with me prior to make sure that it's warranted. And there are times, especially I'll use Raquel, because not much of her job can be overseen by anyone else. If she and I are working on a project and it's important and there's a time sensitivity to it, she may come and say, hey, listen, I want to finish this up. It's going to run me into overtime. We'll discuss it if it fits and that's something she wants to be able to do. Then I'll usually approve it in advance. We don't do that very often. We generally try not to keep everybody balanced.
May I say, I appreciate this conversation mightily, because one of the things in a high collegial environment that can happen is that hourly folks start to feel great loyalty. And a part of their loyalty is to work through their break or work through their lunch.
Oh, yeah.
And then down the road, all of a sudden we have an accumulated liability. Not only to them to pay, but then, as you said, the penalty, plus it makes us look. I so appreciate this conversation. Thank you for bringing it up, Terry, because I've seen it in schools. The school secretary especially has this undying loyalty. And all of a sudden I find out, okay, get that fixed now and never let it happen again. Because it's kind of an esprit de corps distortion,
Yeah.
if you will. So I'm glad to hear all of this.
Yeah.
That's great.
No, I would say it is built in, not only to policy, but in the culture.
It's good to take breaks.
It is.
There's a reason for them to be there.
Yes.
State of California certainly thinks that.
Well, there's one reason.
We'll have to take a picture when we do our puzzle.
Absolutely. Raquel and I like puzzles, so we set up a puzzle so that you can go out and you have that.
Leave the
Step
computer,
away
leave the screen.
Everything.
Do we have a comfort level that our employees, and I hate using the term employees, they're associates, they're team members, partners, whatever you want to call them, but I'm gonna call them employees for the sake of discussion there. That nobody is doing this loyalty thing where they're not reporting missed breaks or.
I don't think so. We're a small enough team that if somebody hasn't taken a lunch or somebody is staying past, it's very visible. And there's not a tolerance for it. There have been a few instances from time to time where somebody was staying late or something, and Judith has said, you've got to put it on your timesheet. It has to be on your timesheet. Not this like, well, I decided to stay on my own time and finish up this project. No, you didn't.
We're all leave early tomorrow, kind of thing. We're leaving it out. It doesn't.
Right.
Since we're not using a time clock and we're using timesheets, so everybody is reporting on their own. We just have to make sure that there is some mechanism that if a third person were looking through our window or underneath our tent, so to speak, that they'd say, oh yeah, they're taking good care of their employees, and that there's no either opportunity or situations where an employee is being either abused or allowed to take advantage of themselves, so to speak.
Right, good way to put it.
I mean, I feel confident that's the case. I know in this building, Judith and I see that probably the most. But we've talked extensively with Teresa, and Teresa's got a good balance on her team over there as well. Again, everyone has onboarded through this same cultural process, so we don't have old or bad habits to break.
From that,
So that's a good piece.
When all of this information is in the employee handbook, I know.
It is.
And do they sign that they've received the handbook?
They do.
Do we go on their timesheet, do we go another step and say, I verified, took my breaks? Because I've seen, is that on it? I've seen that also in some nonprofits where it's hard to keep track of everybody because they're out in the field or
Statement is
with.
on there.
I don't think that
That
statement
statement
is.
is not on there.
Might, just something to consider.
Yeah,
It heightens the awareness. And it also, we can say, Susie Joe, you said you took your break there.
That's the important
Break
thing,
and lunch.
because
right.
when employees leave,
Yep.
any ill will comes out
It does.
through the time.
Right, right,
Through the
even the
time.
pay time off cards, I'm like, if you're gonna change it on me, you need to initially put your date, because feelings change at some points.
I certainly agree with Jennifer. I'd have a more comfort level if we really tightened up somewhat on time sheet. But time clock, it's a whole different story. I mean.
Right.
Yeah, it's digitized. And I don't know how, if you've been affected by AB5, and I don't know, our organization has not been affected by AB5.
It was.
It was, and
in
it's been-
2020, with our one
Contractor.
person who we
So,
made an employee,
yeah.
and that employee's no longer here, so.
That's been really rough for some nonprofits. And having to convert people out of it into AB5, it's been hell.
Yeah,
So I'm glad we've had an experience, so we know what it looks like,
right.
you know.
Right, now that, Jeff and I worked through that early on, and then, when we shifted some things here and we brought Marnie on as a contractor, Marnie reports to Susan. And they, work through that as independents.
Yeah.
We don't set Marnie's schedule, she is much more independent as a true contractor is, and not an employee.
Okay, good.
I'd like to ask, our team here, and if we could have a report given to the board, just as an additional agenda item, on what our process is on payroll. And how we manage payroll. Doesn't have to be big old, doesn't have to be an epistle or anything, but just a summary outline of how our payroll process works, how we use timesheets as opposed to time clocks, and how we protect both the employee and the district in complying with California law.
It'll also deepen an appreciation for the back end of the house, if I may characterize it that way. We don't see all these wheels going, but this would be a good education for all of us. All right, yeah, great suggestion.
From a procedural standpoint, do you mind if I roll that into my CEO report so we don't have a separate line item? Or would you prefer to have a separate line item discussion?
No, I think in the CE report it'll be fine.
Okay, again, that always gets built into the minutes and such, so.
I'm good with that.
Sure.
As long as we have a conversation about it and that the board has a chance to be aware of what we're doing and the potential liability if we're not doing it.
Right, sure. Details.
Check number, report 8, check the utility report. I don't, how do we get off on that anyway?
I don't.
The payroll services, yeah.
Report number 10. The community investment funds report for May,
Already skipped 9?
did I?
Yes,
Oh, the visa statement.
I was on 9, sorry.
Yep, you are all good. You are where we ought to be. Anything we ought to know about on here?
Nothing there. I will, say that I was going to bring up, I think we should have a conversation about the district's limit for this account. The total limit for this account is set at 6,000. And we're having challenges, being able to do certain district business. For example, some of the conference registrations and things can't be done, and has to be put on individuals' cards, which
Can't we do a one-time increase on the account? Call the bank up and say.
nope, everything has to be handled through a resolution. So it would have to be done minimum 1 month in advance.
Okay.
So right now, we're all paying and you're gonna reimburse us.
Right.
Yeah.
Same thing, because we have a number of our, software that, renew annually. It's difficult, so even though we're looking at it, we're trying to stay so that the payments match with the statements and not have to send things mid. I think, Jennifer, you remember, what was it, last year, we had to authorize an additional payment out of cycle.
Right,
So that we
right.
could make sure that the credit card had a open
Well, then
amount.
let's do a resolution and ask to increase it to 10 or 12.
All right, I did speak to the Umpqua folks when I was at the GM Summit, and so I talked to them briefly. And that was their thing is, set a limit that you're comfortable with, set the resolution to it. And then watch your next couple of monthly cycles. Again, if you haven't set that target completely yet, then come back to them again, but we'll look at that, and I'd like to set that at 12. I think that should be able to meet.
Well, I don't know how long
Monthly.
the $6,000 has been our limit.
That's the amount the account was opened at.
And I'm suggesting that
Yeah.
doesn't reflect it changes on
Yeah.
increases on, so I'm good with 12.
I'm good with both.
All right, then we'll add that to the July, board, as an action item.
And one of the reasons why I'm good with it is we have so many eyes on it and then we get to look at it and then the board gets, get more eyes on it than we're giving, so.
Yeah,
If we
it's-
were meeting every 6 months, I'd have a problem.
Right, or if it was my personal card.
Yeah,
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is
no.
an
Yeah, no.
uncomfortable thing.
Okay.
And, report number 10, now can we go to 10?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Community Investment Funds Report for May. This report shows the utilized funds invested in the district's real estate primarily for the redevelopment of the community health and wellness, including maintenance, repairs, permits, and consultants. For the fourth quarter, there was $34,172.29 spent. Is that the same amount we had reported last time? Seems like it's pretty close to the same.
It might be similar.
Okay.
I think this month we had more come up. So you'll see a different balance coming forward.
So are we going to, go ahead and transfer some of that money, back into our operating account?
I don't think we need to at this time. I think we'll do it at the end of July, I think is when we rebalance it.
Okay.
I have a question, or it's a comment. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but is this the first time we've seen it in this format?
No, we went to this a few months ago so that we could start seeing some cumulative because.
Well, I'm
the-
slow to the uptake. I want to say how much I like this.
Okay.
I don't know why I was distracted enough, but I like seeing it all in one place. And the bottom line, so to speak, that's great. And may I ask a question about CalTrust?
Yeah,
Okay, I'm puzzled. Not only do we make a huge interest at 17,000, We have a huge unrealized gain when we've been lost when we've been having unrealized gains, and I'm confused.
Well, we had
Did
some.
we lose a lot of value, or was it our transfers out, or?
No, it pretty much just had to do with market fluctuation. Remember, that's the month that you saw a lot of banking irregularity. Extraordinary activity, I believe is the term we decided to.
But it is puzzling to have such a huge unrealized loss when we had such a significant deposit. I mean, we lost money, quote unquote, theoretically.
Right, if we had cashed out,
That,
right.
you know, $12,000. So I'm really scratching my head. And I don't expect anybody here to have an answer, but if it's market factors, okay, those are beyond us, but it's just a curious dynamic.
So far, the language I've heard from the most recent investment folks was that the overall instability from the banking really rippled across markets. And that now that has pretty much stabilized, we should be back to the normal, if unusual, inverted yield
Yeah.
curves.
Yeah.
But the banking instabilities were really the big oddities.
Okay.
I don't know.
In
if
that
you-
report that I do,
Mhm.
if you were to look at that and see what Cal Trust invests in, and, you know, I get a pie chart and I put it up on the report, so maybe you could see that the CDs are giving us the dividend income and interest income.
Yeah, it's, I believe all of CalTrust is in the short,
Medium.
in the medium term.
Medium term.
Yeah,
Because we thought it was part of the strategy.
right.
So anywho, okay. Just an oddball,
It's an interesting observation.
I mean,
This brings up the topic of it, depending the tack that the district wants to take as far as how long we want to keep some of these funds in reserve or until we go into development and all that, of whether or not the district should have an investment advisor. Instead of us trying to look at these three investments individually versus having,
or keep moving stuff out of CalTrust.
well, and I mean, right now, we're seeing unprecedented times in the CalTrusted accounts.
Environment, yeah.
Traditionally, it's been the safest, most stable gain that all the entities are generally supportive of.
Well,
Yeah, I get it.
I think that from my perspective, that's one of the reasons that we belong to CSDA,
Mhm.
is to see what the other special districts are doing. And I'm okay with whatever they're doing, we should consider doing the same.
Mhm.
If they're going out and hiring, investment advisors, I think we have no business doing that. My personal feeling. But that's why we pay to share,
And,
to
right.
share among our peers what they're doing, and we're all pretty smart.
Mhm. And we have 3 parking places.
Right.
So that we can, you know,
Exactly.
anyway, it just kind of maybe go wah, 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 wah. I'm just glad it's an unrealized loss,
Right.
and maybe we'll regain our foot on it, so. Yeah, never, no,
I'm good with that.
me too.
If everybody is continuing to indicate from the finance folks who are presenting at SCIFSDA, bringing forward the Fed Reserve, I still gotta get you that dot. They're still generally pretty consistent that we will see what we will see for the next year. Around June of next year is when they anticipate things will shift around. There was not a lot of strong conversation around the likelihood of recession. Of course, none of them will
Own up to it.
die on that hill.
Yeah.
Everyone will say, I'm not, I can't prognosticate.
If they
I don't have
did,
a
I
crystal
I
ball.
worry.
If
Right.
they did, I would believe them.
They belong on
Anyway.
American Creed, episode 9. Love that show.
I love them.
But they did pretty much all indicate, some pretty consistent, observations
Okay.
and expectations over the next year.
And we'll have a chance to gab fest with our colleagues when we're up in Monterey.
Sounds good to
Yeah,
me, yeah.
good. Excellent.
Yeah, unless there's another war that breaks out that involves us or something on the political landscape that goes crazy or whatever, I agree.
Yeah,
And no one, since no one can foresee that, they have no business trying to crystal ball anything.
there
Exactly.
you go.
Okay,
So then, I do want to just, bring you back to your disclosure statements.
keep me on track here, yes. And in summary, disclosures, the investments of the district are in compliance with the district's 2022-23 investment policy. The balances in the district's investment accounts give the district the ability to meet its expenditure requirements for the next 18 months. And do we have anything else we need to discuss as far as the finance committee?
I think it's been a right fine meeting.
Okay. Your other committee, as far as, construction and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we had a
meetings?
great moment with the folks who are doing the integrated parking lot solar. And they're coming to our July meeting.
Correct.
And I think not only was you got your vibe and then you got your content, both were excellent. They really sounded a chord of confidence and service. So I look forward to your views as well.
What are they gonna want, some money?
Not upfront.
Not
Unless they
That's where I was going,
deliver.
that's the finance committee, right?
They have to deliver before we pay them.
Right,
Yeah.
so the letter of agreement, which is what will be presented and discussed at the board meeting.
Yeah.
Really outlines how they receive their funding, and they do a lot of upfront work first to make sure that the project is viable and that there is utility savings before they will then say, hey, you're good, this job will help to pay for itself, here's some potential funding mechanisms for it. If at that point we say, yes, we agree, and then they go forward and they do that investigation, then they bring those results back. Once those results come back and it's viable and the board says yes, then we can start a payment.
And it was very helpful that you included that letter of agreement in the facilities committee packet. I'm sure you will do it again for the full board because
Absolutely.
having the ability to read it ahead of time
Yes.
helped me be ready for what I was gonna hear. So,
Yeah, and since that's the expectation, that's what the board is agreeing to, it's
Yeah.
part of the action item for the July
Beautiful.
meeting.
Beautiful.
I actually confirmed with Josh today that he will be at our July meeting. Keep in mind, our July meeting is at the Community Health and Wellness Center. It is also when we do the big grant check photo ops.
Nice.
So, Raquel and I went over the logistics of the meeting. We'll have Site Logic present theirs first, so that you can have the conversation. Then we'll do all the grants and the regular business, and then your discussion items will be to vote on that particular item, but you'll be presented with it first. We're trying to keep that
Sounds good.
fun activity going.
Yeah, I'm making a note to myself to go to the wellness center.
I
Yes,
was gonna send you an update as well,
Thank
Yeah.
a
you.
reminder,
I need all the help I can get.
and to let you know that we'll be having a brief foundation meeting after.
great.
Oh, are we revving up?
No,
Oh,
we're
okay.
still in hold mode,
We're still
but
in neutral.
Yeah. But the idea was that we would do it biannually until we get.
Yeah, I remember
Final
that
documents.
biannual, yeah. Yeah, good.
There's really no business to be had until we get that designation letter.
Very good.
Anything
All right.
else we need to cover?
I think we're good.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
All right.
Anything else?
Nope,
I appreciate the work you ladies do, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
thank you.
We're adjourned.
Vacation.
Yes, that would be the 12th.
Thank you.
Is that on the website agenda?
Well, we haven't posted that agenda yet for that